that the receiving faculty, wherever they are within ACSD, will be receptive of the students and support it. And we will be ensuring that that transition goes as smoothly as it can. That said, there's no way that we will be able to forecast, that equation adequately.
I think you're absolutely correct in that if the parents would not get behind that move, then it wouldn't work. The parents have to support what's going to happen.
The parents have to support what's going to happen no matter what. I think if we've learned anything here, this is a tale of unintended consequences. And I would hope we could move forward mitigating those as much as possible, no matter what we do.
Right.
Mary Heather.
Just before I speak again, I just want to make sure.
I know, that's why I kind of looked around.
Like Laura, I don't think we've heard from you.
Said anything yet.
Yeah.
It's percolating.
I feel like action needs to be taken. I feel strongly that this is an emergency, and that the fact that teachers have left, I agree that is part of the story that has happened here and the story that has been presented to us. And so to think like, whoa, now we got to slow down, to me, no. This underscores what a problem we have on our hands. And so I guess just keeping in mind with that, I would like to put a motion forward that we authorize Dr. Baker to move students in kindergarten and or first grade to another ACSD classroom that meets the learning requirements of those students. And I guess, well, we heard from you that there's no siblings attached, but I guess if there were any other negatively impacted students for the remainder of this school year only, and that this is a limited action.
Can I ask a clarification?
Sure can.
Is your motion to authorize me to move them if they would like to be moved, or to transfer their attendance to another classroom?
I would transfer the attendance because I have serious doubts about our ability as a district to fill a K-1-2 teacher position. And then I would also, I don't know if this should be a second motion or include, but authorize or ask Dr. Baker to advertise the principal position, and obviously provide coverage for the duration of that search process.
I think I would treat those as two.
Just as a point of clarification,
I was going to say, that's a personnel matter. I don't think we need to have a motion from
Right.
the board to do that. That's just a normal
Yeah,
course.
that's true.
Yeah.
we would
That's
do that
true.
anyway.
Yeah.
And also I think another point with that, any parent in the district can request, based on an educational or personal hardship, that they are transferred through C30. It's number 3 of C30. The policy limitations of that don't allow the superintendent to reassign without a request, at least as it's been implemented in the past, and I think as it's generally understood. So really the only thing that I don't have the authority to do, should you wish to go in this direction, is to reassign students.
So the motion would be authorize Dr. Baker to reassign students to another, instead of move,
To
reassign.
reassign students in kindergarten and or first grade.
Yeah.
I guess that's,
It would be helpful to be
Yeah.
specific, the and or, it leaves it to
Yeah.
my choice, and
Yeah.
that's,
So can I ask a question?
Could
At
we
the
second
Ripton
it?
School, right? We need to also be specific that
True.
this is about the Ripton
Yes.
school and not broadly across the district. Thanks.
yes.
Yes.
At the Ripton School for this academic year.
And we need a second. Before-
Before we second it, can I just ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
Because it might change things. So if we don't, you said K1, but if we don't have a second grade teacher, are you,
I think,
It would be my job
Yeah,
to
I-
determine what would happen with those students
Okay.
and if for some reason.
I just didn't know if you needed to have,
Yeah.
I guess
I don't
my
know.
thinking is
I mean, I was
that
thinking
it's
with the
easier to
teacher going,
recruit
so-
for a single grade classroom.
There could be many different
Right.
options in that respect.
But given the limitations we have around this K1 population of students, and I suspect there's other obstacles in the way, probably related to plans, that make an easy solution not so easy in this circumstance. So
it was just.
Yeah.
Because we had the letter from the K1-2 teacher that had resigned, so I just didn't want us just to think about some of them, but not all of them. That was
Right.
the only
Yeah.
reason I asked the clarifying question.
yeah,
Do you want to restate what your motion,
Yeah.
since we changed it?
yeah. So I make a motion that we authorize Dr. Baker to transfer K1 students at the Ripton School to other ACSD schools for the remainder of the 2024-25 academic year.
Do I have a second on
I'll
that?
second that.
Okay, discussion.
I just want to make a comment. Since this came up to us, although we'd heard about this configuration in the summertime and all the difficulties with it. This came up last week and now, obviously now. The board did not approach this, and I don't want to put it in a position that this was somehow was undermined by us trying to formulate the dissolution of the Ripton School. That I don't want the public to think that one bit, because in fact, it came up to how do we get the best education to the small number of children that are specifically affected by this. And that's how we're looking at it. But I take it as an affront if in fact someone is saying that who have been in favor of consolidation in lots of ways in the past, that this was some way to maneuver into that. No way. And I just feel strongly I had to say that because I did not want to be in the position that this is now happening.
Question.
Yes, right.
How does Salisbury fit in here now? I thought the trade was gonna
We
be,
had LA too.
Yeah. I'll go to LA after Brian.
I thought it was gonna be to Salisbury students. And
Right.
Now,
So
now it's open to any school in the district. So
Jeez.
have we changed that or what?
So my recommendation was never had a place where they went. I mean, I didn't have a
Okay.
recommendation to you, and I still don't have a recommendation to you. I'm presenting you with a circumstance and saying that, there were parent concerns about access to education in a 3-grade classroom. Those have not been resolved, though they've been set aside, given that the issues appear to be larger. So my recommendation that has, I think, informed Mary Heather's motion
Okay.
tonight is that there is not one solution that would be anything I would be recommending in terms of the location of students should you choose to
So
move them.
it
out.
gives you the flexibility that you need.
Yes,
Thank you.
yes. I think at this point, ensuring that we are honoring parents' knowledge and belief about what is best for their child is of central importance.
LA.
LA.
So I'm unclear if this motion allows Wendy or anyone else to make a decision to keep the first graders there with the second graders, if that's decided, it would make the most sense. I know that Laura had mentioned this before, that we should be trying to create an option that disrupted the least amount of kids, both the ones being sent away and the classrooms receiving kids. So it would seem that if it was possible to keep the first and second graders together, that would just be 2 students we might be moving, and that seems much more palatable.
I make a
But
suggestion.
the way that it's written right now, is it that she now would have to, if we
No.
approve this, remove the first graders as well, or just that she could if she chose to?
It was or, and or.
Yeah, and I'm not interested in you giving me a motion that has me use my judgment about who ought to be moved and who shouldn't be moved. And, I think if you want to offer grades K1-2 at Ripton, then you should take no action. If you feel that you would like to reduce the number of grades offered in Ripton for the 2024-2025 school year, then you should say so. I mean, and I will operationalize whatever the board wishes to have happen. But the decision about how many grades to offer in a school is, that's up to you. And I
So LA, do you want to make a motion to amend?
That's what I would suggest.
I'm not personally in favor of removing any grades, so I won't make a motion to amend, but I'm just asking these questions so that you guys can consider it.
Okay. Joanna?
I have a couple of points I want to make. To Chip's point about this, you feeling affronted that this is plans to close the school. In a way it is, because there are no other options on the table except removing grades. If we're going to look case by case, individual families at Ripton, I don't understand why it would be such a far-fetched idea to look case by case at families that might want to transfer to Ripton, and that would solve this. So if the only option is on the table to remove grades, it very much is the plan to close. And I think what is an isolated issue should not be something the board starts, in the habit of intervening in. We do have a policy that governs student residence and what school they go to, and that's currently being addressed in the policy committee. We are a board and we want to function with policy. We should allow that process to unfold in the appropriate way. I think rewriting policy on the fly is a dangerous precedent to set.
So I don't believe this is rewriting policy. It's a temporary remedy to the problem that's at hand, right? So if in fact the policy committee, when they have the opportunity to come out with recommendations around the policy 30 and the other policies that they're looking at, then that will be what drives us going forward and could even bring those children back if the parents wanted those children to come back. I mean, that would need to be a consideration, for those parents to decide if they would want their child to come back to Ripton. So any other comments? We have a motion on the floor. Any amendments to it? Whatever, this is the time to actually make those amendments.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, you can.
I come back always to where we're at, and we are at a place where we have 3 grade levels of students at Ripton who do not have a teacher or shortly will not have a teacher. For a 3 grade classroom, that will be exceptionally difficult to staff for the remainder of the year with somebody who is adequately prepared and qualified to instruct those grade levels of children for the remainder of the school year. And our job as a district board is to determine how to best serve those students to get the academic outcomes that they deserve. And how do we do that while disrupting them as little as possible, or disrupting as few students as possible, as few families as possible, while still giving them the opportunities that they deserve? And I would be thoroughly shocked if we could find somebody who was capable, qualified, prepared to take on a K-1-2 classroom. And I am speaking as a parent of an elementary school student and as a parent of a kid who is in pre-K now. So, this is very much on my mind as a parent as well. What would I what would I want for my students, for my kids? And I wonder what is the likelihood of staffing that position for a single grade classroom versus a 2-grade classroom versus a 3-grade classroom. And do you think, Dr. Baker, that you could, with your crystal ball?
Well, with my crystal ball, I think there are also internal options. You know, for example, it may be better to make a 2-3 classroom, which was not, we're beyond the ideal options, right? So, however, that's that. If we have the second graders, then that becomes a conversation. I can't make a 4-grade classroom, so
Right.
So I think if the kindergartners and the first graders are educated elsewhere, that's probably the first solution that we will explore. Is that workable? If it's not workable, then we would be looking to hire a long-term sub. If we hire a long-term sub for a single grade, the chances of having somebody that's successful and can continue to move those students forward, I think is reasonable. It's also somewhat reasonable in doing a first and second grade. What we do with the students between now and then, we'll have to work out, right? I think at this point, the curricular challenges that the parents expressed regarding a K-1-2 are still there. They are now exacerbated because we are unlikely to find a teacher that is highly qualified in a multi-grade, young, developmental age across multiple content areas. So I think that is now amplified the concern. Yeah.
Jamie.
I'm trying to think how to say this. I feel like I hear people saying it's hard to find a K-1-2 teacher, and what do I know about hiring teachers? Like, I don't, it's not my job. I feel like, again, I have always unresolved questions about personnel, but I feel like I wonder if we can try to staff it and see. There's a truism in my field that is like about labor shortage, that they're solved by money. And I'm like, can we try to find someone to staff that classroom if the person who's currently doing it can't do it? And I feel like we owe it to everybody to try to do that. And if at the end of that search, let's give ourselves a time frame that's reasonable and acceptable, that we can't do it, and we've exhausted every other possibility, then I personally would be consider voting for the motion that Mary Heather said, I guess. But I also think that seems to me to be an absolute last ditch effort, which we're now considering doing tonight. And I feel like that is I don't think it's right. I think we owe it to ourselves and to everybody to try to staff that position. I'll just stop there.
So how long do you think the current teacher, she's given a letter that she wants to, be relieved of that position, right? How long do you think is reasonable that she would be willing to stay in that classroom?
I couldn't speak to that. I think that I couldn't speak to that.
Yeah. Mary Heather.
I guess to follow up on that, I think it's important for the board to consider the environment we're asking a professional to enter into, given what we know and the story that we've already been told. And I do appreciate Jamie's point about, we should try. And I certainly feel that way about the principal position, because I feel like that's not as hard of a recruitment effort to envision. But to try to find a highly specialized individual and ask them to enter this environment that has clearly been stressful enough to have the story that we've been told unfold. We do have we have an obligation to our educators as well. They are as important to the success of a learning environment. So I just will again reiterate my discomfort with the let's try to fill that position. I just don't think that's a realistic situation, and I worry about what we're asking of our educators. That really concerns me. And all last year, and there was a lot of talk about supporting our educators, and I just it just rubs me wrong. I guess it makes me feel uncomfortable.
I agree. It's a big ask.
Yeah.
I agree. I mean, I'm one to support educators.
Yeah.
But I
And
agree.
I'm not suggesting that
Yeah,
what you're saying.
Yeah, that's
isn't.
we kind of point of order.
Yeah.
We're Ellen.
I wonder if I guess I don't actually see how posting for a job undermines our educators or communicates to our educators. I don't know, anything other than that we're trying to fill a vacancy. But I wonder if what we could do, listening to some of the public comments, it sounds like the communication and the outreach to parents has been really well received on Wendy's part over the last week. And we have, I don't know, even if it's a long shot, I get very worried when this board starts to predict the future. And I think the same way that we don't know how 5 children will be affected by this exactly, we don't know exactly what will happen, even if it's highly unlikely. Waiting 2 weeks to revisit this, waiting until 3 weeks from now, I guess, not the next board meeting, but the week meeting after, and asking for continuous engagement with families to understand how what Mary Heather has put on the table might not feel as abrupt, might not feel as difficult and heartbreaking, while also trying to, even if it's just an elimination process, even if it's just to confirm what most of us believe, which is that we won't be able to fill this position. I don't think being just a little bit more slow on this is, I don't see the downside to that, even if it's just to communicate that we are trying to find a solution that is the least disruptive to kids before we engage with a highly disruptive strategy.
I have 2 clarifying questions. So one of them is, remember the whole conversation that brought it to the board on the 9th, which was as a result of substantive conflict, that was in place, which I unfortunately now we're seeing play out in a different way than we may have expected at that time. The putting together of those 3 grades, is if that is what you are talking about doing, then I just want you to be clear that is a situation where there have been parents who already are concerned about access in that configuration and who continue to be concerned about access. They are setting aside that concern in favor of making sure that the school can stay together, but that concern is not gone. So I just want to make sure that doesn't change with the teacher. And in fact, in some ways, it probably is exacerbated in this change. The other thing I just want to make sure that I'm putting on the table is that, one of the reasons that I brought the conversation to the board on the 10th day of school is because it was the 10th day of school. I worry if there is to be a change that the board is contemplating about doing it on the 20th day, the 30th day, the 50th day. You know, I think if you are contemplating that you would direct me to move students in grades K and 1 out of Ripton to other appropriate educational placements in collaboration with families, the sooner you do that, the better for the students, because they are still able to be part of early grade routine development and so on and so forth that goes on. The longer you wait, if that is your mind, I think the more difficult that transition is. Both academically, given the new developments, and socially.
Yeah, that's my concern, is the impact this is going to have on the kindergarten and first graders, these 5 kids. And I'm just really worried that at this point in this configuration, with the teacher going to leave, you know, what is really going to be happening in that classroom in the interim over the next week until she does leave. And, you know, what's the education going to be? And are they really going to get what they need? And then especially if we can't find someone, and then they have to then move anyway, and then their peers are going to be so much further ahead of them and they have to catch up. This is weighing really heavy. I just feel for these kids, and I think it's a no-win situation. I don't think there's a good answer here. It's kind of the worst of the evils is what I'm kind of looking at. In my head, I said, well, you know, maybe if we just move the kindergartner and we could try to then find someone 1-2, you know, then we would only be moving 2 folks, right? Which would be probably the least disruptive if we felt that would be viable. Obviously, we're not going to have a 1, 2, 3. You know, the curriculum would be really hard to support that. You know, and I think I've heard you say that there could be potential to really fill a 1-2, potentially, you know, like temporarily basis for the rest of the year. As a sub is that an easier position to fill?
It is. I think we can take care of the second graders internally without hire.
Okay.
So I think that's a consideration if the board is looking at all the different possibilities. We would need to hire if we are doing a multi-grade. Otherwise, we're back into a 3-grade situation. Although I guess we could do, if we can do K1-2, we can do 1-2-3. So I mean, it's the same conundrum, right? It's not any different. It's you're either going to support a 3-grade situation or not.
Right.
So I'm not compelling you to take any action in particular, right?
Right.
It's
I know. That's the hard part.
I know. I'm deliberately resisting doing that. You know, I'm just trying to help you understand, you know, the realities of the circumstance.
Right. And for me, like a 1, 2, 3, you know, the little bit of that's a huge, you know, whenever I've been around, you know, by the time the kids are in 3rd grade, they've really changed a lot from the 1st grade. So it seems like 1, 2, 3 would be, in my mind, which I don't know anything about, but it just seems like that would be much harder than a K1-2.
And it would be one of the largest class size.
Yeah.
I think it's over 20.
Yeah.
Combine those 3 grades.
That's
Correct.
true. And that's unworkable with a 3-grade. So that's not even an option, I don't think. Jamie.
There was a 3-grade, there's a 3-grade classroom at Weybridge a couple years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Were you there then? What grades was that? And how was it?
Go ahead and answer that, if you can remember.
It was a K1, 2, there were 2 general education teachers in 2 classrooms. So they were co-teaching a K1, 2.
Co-teaching a K1 too.
Which is a little different than this.
It's a
Having
lot
one,
different, actually.
yeah, it's a lot
Very
different.
different.
Yeah, so, with the kindergarten, I mean, that's the minimal, I think, in my mind. But then I, can see the ability to either hire a second grade teacher if it was just second grade, or combine it with third grade. So you have flexibility there, depending on if you can find someone. Whereas if 1, 2, I don't know if that changes the situation at all. It makes it easier or harder to do. So anyone else feel that way? Struggling with kindergarten versus K1 versus,
Struggle with all of it.
yeah.
It's all hard. It's difficult decisions to make. In some cases, they have older siblings.
Mhm.
So, so that at some point, older sibling would go on to the middle school, but this is making that kind of cut a little bit earlier for some. I mean, I've worked in first grade classrooms, second grade classrooms, and I've seen the tears as parents, leave town and the student leaves, and the tears tears the teachers apart. But I also know that the stress from a highly qualified teacher, even though they're doing their darndest not to let the students pick up on that stress, the kids pick up on it.
Yeah.
And so it does affect the kids.
Right.
As hard as they try to hide it and, be professional and teach the students that stress, kids pick up on that. And it makes me wonder what that also might do to students. So part of me is wondering if we vote on this motion, does it, and Dr. Baker talks with the families, maybe it sorts itself out that K and 1 parents look at this as a wonderful opportunity, or maybe just the K parents say this is a wonderful opportunity. And then, then it might come back as a different conversation, but maybe giving the parents that conversation with you allows them more freedom and choosing what they feel is right for their child.
Which conversation are you?
So if
speaking
we
of?
were to vote on Mary Heather's motion, and then
Which states K and or 1 right now.
So I'm presuming that to
Right.
I'm sorry, I
transfer,
said K and 1.
Oh, you
so
said
that
K.
I didn't have ambiguity.
Okay, K and 1.
so I'm presuming that she said transfer in that motion, correct?
Yes.
That if you're transferring, you would have to speak with the parents as to where they might be transferred to.
Well, that would be my recommendation, no matter what. Yeah,
then-
that the parents would essentially have a choice as to. And one important data point for the Ks and 1s is that 3 of the 5 students are Ripton residents. 2 of them are not Ripton residents. So they are there from other placements. So they may not stay within ACSD schools, in that sense. So they're not necessarily obligated to do that.
So then, yeah, I mean, in this conversation, it's maybe the parents view it as an opportunity to find, I don't know. I don't think there's any one real good answer, but they are so young. They deserve the best education they can possibly get at this age.
to keep them moving forwards so that they have those building blocks.
Any other questions, comments, thoughts?
I guess I just want to express, I mean, I think we all feel really just kind of nauseous about this and heartbroken.
Yes. Ellie, you have your hand up. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I just want to have, for clarity, say again that it sounds like the way that we have it put would not leave an option for after discussion for there to be a 1-2 classroom. Because that's come up several times where people seem to think that wasn't something that should be discussed. But if we vote on this, that means that we are voting to close kindergarten and first grade at Ripton and not look for a solution that involves like a possible 1-2 classroom, for example. And I was clear on that earlier, but it sounded like a couple people in their comments were not clear on that. So I'm just restating.
Okay. Mary Heather?
I guess that would be the question for folks on the board, whether anyone wants to amend the motion.
What is the motion again?
K1.
Yeah, right. Let me see if I can
Was
do
the whole
this. Mary Heather made a motion to authorize Dr. Baker to transfer,
To direct me or to authorize?
to authorize.
So that
To
means to
authorize.
me that if they want to go, they can. So that's different from directing me to do that,
Right.
right? I'm just being crystal clear
Yeah.
so that there's absolutely no ambiguity leaving this room, whatever it is that you decide.
Okay, so I can't read my hand scratching. So Mary Heather's motion said, authorize Dr. Baker to transfer Ripton kindergarten and first grade students to another ACSD classroom that would meet their learning requirements. Did I capture that?
For the 2025.
For the, yes, for the,
24-25 academic year. And I guess I would make a motion to amend that to clarify not just authorize, but direct Dr. Baker.
And if they don't want to go to another ACSD school, meaning that's not because they're out of district, let's say, and I can't
Oh, I see
compel
what
Yeah.
you're saying.
somebody
Yes.
from out of district to go to
Right.
another ACSD school.
Yeah,
So,
I guess,
not realizing that some of those students were some of our students that probably come up over the mountain from
right.
Hancock. I don't really know what the agreement is with students that come from Hancock. I do know that they have 3 options of where they go to school. But I don't know how it works on their end to our end. So
Mhm.
I don't know. I wouldn't even know how to amend a motion for those students without knowing that agreement.
if what you're wanting to vote on or wanting to consider as whether it's your next option is to have me reassign students in grades K1 and K2 to other adequate educational circumstances for the 24-25 school year, then I think that's more along the line of wording that you are considering. I'm not recommending, I'm not compelling, you're considering that. So I which really means negotiating with each family in each circumstance what feels like it's the right thing to do, given what they know about their child and that and their and all of the other things that families have to consider.
Yeah,
Jamie.
I can't make a motion about this because I don't think it's something that we would tell you to do or whatever. But I guess what feels better to me is to have on the board 3 options or something, or 4 options, whatever they are. That like here over the last, let's say 2 weeks, we have taken the time to develop these different options. Here is all the data you need to know about the people and the places that could be affected by this. Here's what we have tried to do to remedy the situation thus far. It just feels like we're rushing into this. And I know, like, you know, part of it, but anyway, it just feels like every 20 minutes we learn something new. And this is not a you thing. I'm not like blaming you or anything. I'm just saying we keep learning new stuff. And I keep not knowing the things I want to know because I can't ask those questions. And that feels like real bad, real irresponsible on my part. Like I would feel so it like to make this decision the way we're talking about doing it, the gravity of it feels like we need 3 or 4 clearly defined options. Move just these ones, move all these ones. Where might they go? What do parents think about those moves? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm not saying those in the end are the deciding factors, but I feel like organizing in such a way that we can really see the data points out in front of us clearly, have time to reflect on it is really important.
I might be able to help you a little bit. I'm not sure it's truly getting at what you're getting at, but I want to make sure that if I have information that I can share in a public forum, it's a little bit difficult. We only have 5 kids, right? You know, and I want to be respectful of that. You know, I think Mary Hogan and Salisbury are typically the schools that that families, should they choose a school, as opposed to a homeschooling option, or you know, something that's more related to the opportunities that somebody from a town over the mountain has. You know, those are the options that are most readily available. There are no school options in that circumstance that I know of that would be negatively impacted by accepting 1 or more children. So we've researched that. That was part of what Brian actually asked me to do, is make sure that if there were any receiving schools that would be negatively impacted by, you know, any of these, you know, possibilities, I knew what they were, you know, and we were able to talk about them. If you start to think about moving the 2nd grade, which has not so much been your conversation, that begins to change in that sense, just by numbers. But in terms of the kindergartners and the 1st graders, you know, there are, you know, the ACSD schools that are really places that families would be choosing are Salisbury and Middlebury.
Okay.
That's.
Can I just respond? Just I guess I appreciate that response. I guess what I'm thinking of is also, and again, this is not us directing you to do something, but like I can imagine a slide that says, here's a possible, you know, here's a hire another teacher to co-teach that class. Like Nicole mentioned, there's two teachers in the K1 at Weybridge. Is that a horrible, insane option? Okay, what's another option, right? Like I can like a situation like where we can really reflect on a variety of options that are not just this one, which seems very, very disruptive, having long-term consequences we don't know. Or maybe we do know and nobody likes them.
It's a good point, Jamie. You know, in this fiscal environment, it never occurred to me to consider asking the board for another position, an unbudgeted position, but that's an option. Hiring, I could probably find 2 professionals to put into that 13 student class. It's an unbudgeted position. If the board would wish me to do that, then that is an option that's on the table. I didn't think to propose that, so I appreciate you mentioning that. So that's an option. Another option would be to try to manage the situation in-house the very best way we can. You know, I don't feel great about that as an educational circumstance, you know, but as I said, I don't think when we chose the K1-2 with a single teacher in that circumstance, everybody felt that was a perfect solution. So we're still in a situation that feels imperfect in that respect, for sure. Option 3 is to have the kindergarten relocated and to try to hire a 1-2. Option 4 is to have the kindergarten and first grade relocated and probably absorb the second grade into the third grade. That's a teacher they already know. It's somebody they're already familiar with. And that probably is the least disruptive circumstance for the second graders. So I guess there's 4 options, I think.
Okay, you just did. Okay.
Yeah. And I appreciate your mentioning it because I would not have thought to have brought the possibility of 2 teachers here. So thank you for reminding me of that.
Laura?
Laura.
I just want to make a clarifying point. I think my understanding is the year that Waybridge had K1-2 was there were 2 classrooms of K1-2 taught by 2 different educators. Is that correct? No. Okay. Thank you.
Jamie, are you proposing an amendment to the current motion? Because we do have a motion on the,
Hasn't been said.
it was
seconded by
seconded.
Steve.
Steve seconded.
Yes. I don't think my thing is like, they're so different. You know, like, I mean, okay, so I'll try to make one.
Well, there's a motion on the floor already though, right?
No, a
This
motion
would be
to
a
amend.
motion to amend.
All
You
right,
would have to
okay.
amend the first motion.
Yeah, you would have to change, or else we vote on this
I
one.
mean, I
If
guess
it fails, and
the thing that's confusing for me is I haven't, what I think is a fundamentally different idea, which would essentially just be either tabling or canceling the you know, it doesn't make sense to amend that. I can make another motion, but like, so I don't know how, you gonna give me something here, Jason? What? What did you say?
I don't
Move to-
amend
You
it.
can move to postpone. I move to.
Is that Roberts?
yes,
Yeah.
that's our
What
cheat
is he
sheet.
saying?
He's saying that you can move to postpone.
Yeah, you can move to postpone if that's what you want to do.
I move that we postpone
But-
this matter until.
You,
And that can be made inside the
Right.
discussion process. You don't have to leave, you don't have to vote on it, you don't have to amend it. You can propose that within the discussion.
right,
It's an option instead of taking a vote and going from there.
right. We have to take a
You still have to
vote
take a
on
vote.
the
It has to be a
postpone.
majority.
Yeah,
Postpone it, but.
yeah,
No, to
and it's,
Okay. I mean, I see what you're saying, and thank you everyone for this education on Robert's rules. I should know by now. So okay, I'll. This is not really what I. So I will amend the motion. Is that
no,
correct?
you're
No.
making a motion to
Postpone.
I will make a motion
postpone.
to postpone the matter until we have more time to gather more information and consider a few other options around personnel, which we can't currently do in the public session.
Just as a point of order, I think it's usually a move that we postpone this matter until the next meeting or the next.
Right, right.
Yeah, there
Because
needs
Right.
to be
the
a
whole
finite.
verbiage makes it very confusing.
Okay. I move we postpone this matter until the next meeting, which is on date next week.
23rd.
23rd, which is next week.
Sure. Thank you for your help, everyone.
Okay, it needs a second.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Mary Heather.
I guess the question I have for folks who might be considering postponing is what specific personnel information changes the circumstances? But I guess, if you consider the personnel information that you might learn in the executive session, does that make a difference in terms of the story that's been told, in terms of the circumstances we're facing right now, in terms of our obligation to provide the learning environment we're obligated to provide to the children? I personally don't feel that the details about a an educator's request to leave an environment that has clearly been very stressful, I'm not sure that that necessarily changes what we already know.
Well, I guess let's find out. I guess that's what I'm saying. Like, we don't know what, it's like the Donald Rumsfeld thing. We don't know what we don't know. And I guess I have some questions that I feel other people share similar things about this, that we don't know what we don't know. And I feel like it's worth this matter is important enough to really ask some questions that to me seem to be very lingering. Occasionally I've even been alluded to people tonight, I think by accident, but I don't know. And I feel like it might matter. If it doesn't, then it doesn't.
Ellen? Yeah, I'm sorry. Ellen, your hand's up?
Yeah, I mean, I also would love an extra week to consider, or even to have written down the 4 options that Wendy just said verbally. You know, a week ago we were presented with one option. And even if we decide that one option is the right one, a week to process that would be helpful. I would love more time to consider what I've heard us debating, which is, should we be aiming for directing Wendy to only move 2 students versus 5 students? And what would be the pros and cons of that scenario? I think it would be beneficial to hear more about why a K1 configuration of 5 students is suboptimal or impossible. I think there's, and it doesn't need to be 3 additional hours, but 1 additional week to really make this decision. And I am deeply concerned for children and their educational outcomes. And we are hearing from the parents of these children that they are deeply concerned about this move. And I think it's okay for us to take truly a relatively small amount of time, 7 additional days, some additional information. I agree that there are personnel questions that I would like to ask in executive session. And then we can try to make a decision. And all told, it will have been 2 weeks of deciding whether or not to eliminate 2 grades from an entire school. And that does not seem wild to me. That seems responsive to an emergency and thoughtful and considerate of the magnitude of the decision that we're making and the extremely strong feelings of our constituents who have shared that with us tonight, including staff of this school.
Okay, Suzanne.
So the only thing I'll throw into the conversation is that there are certain pieces and certain rights that our employees have around privacy. And so you may not be able to have answers to your questions based on those privacy rules for employees. We can't violate them because those are their rights. And we would probably find ourselves in front of a labor board if we were to violate them. So not knowing what your questions are, I just want to lay that out there that when you are an employer versus an employee, there are certain lines you just cannot cross. Doesn't matter if it's an executive session or where it is. I just want to be realistic and leave that out there for people.
Any other? Okay, we have a motion to postpone until the next board meeting.
It needs a majority
Yes,
to pass.
yes. And so are folks ready to take a vote on this?
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor of postponing the current motion for another week, please indicate. We're going to do a roll call because if someone is remote, we should do a roll call according to a statute. So I apologize for that.
So we're going to start with online first.
Yeah, so we'll start with online. Ellie?
Aye.
Ellen?
Aye.
Okay, so then in the room, Jason?
Aye.
Okay. Joanna?
Point of order.
Yeah, okay.
And this is not personal, but given your involvement in this particular issue, I just would make the request that you don't vote. Okay.
Okay. Brian?
Aye.
Mary Heather,
Nay.
Laura,
Can you come back to me?
I could come back to you. Yeah. Chip,
Nay.
Suzanne,
Nay.
Steve,
Nay. Aye.
Jamie, Laura,
Nay.
Barbara, we will need your vote.
okay. This is hard. I know,
I'm
Laura.
sorry, I'm confused. Why is Joanna not allowed to vote?
She,
She
recused herself.
she reclused herself.
Because she's involved in the matter at hand.
Is that mean, was she asked to do that?
Yes, I asked.
It sounded to me like, but why? Are we asking, does that mean that anyone who has kids at a school that comes up for any kind of discussion about the operations of that school can't vote?
No, I think we're talking specifically about this matter involving K-12 classroom and this letter and participating as a parent versus participating as a board member. I think is just, we've requested Laura abstain from votes involving personnel. It just seems consistent.
I disagree.
And
point of order is
right,
this
it's point
time
of
to
order.
have a discussion about this?
Yes. I'm going to vote no. Okay. So now we have the motion on the table, and the motion.
The results of the postponement?
Yes.
Go ahead. Could you read those off, Mary?
Yes. Ellie, I, Ellen, I, Jason, I, Joanna abstain, Brian, I, Mary Heather, nay, Laura, nay, Chip, nay, Suzanne, nay, Steve, nay, Jamie, I, Barb, nay.
What was the total?
11.
5 to 6.
So, but
Yeah.
requires a majority.
It requires a majority, and
I'm not sure that's a majority.
6-5.
6-5. Yeah, that's why I voted.
Because it was a tie. So
Okay.
Chair votes in a tie.
Okay.
So we have the old motion.
Now we have the old motion. So, any further discussion before we?
We have a member who left the room though, so let's.
Yeah, I think we.
Yeah, let's wait.
We can't call a
Can't
vote.
vote.
Thank you.
Yeah, well,
Do we have a clear motion?
Yeah, I think we need to revisit the understanding. My understanding was authorizing Dr. Baker to transfer K and 1 students from Ripton Elementary School to
A
a learning environment.
suitable. You said another ACSD classroom that would meet their learning requirements for 2024-25 school year.
Okay, so that doesn't adequately serve students who are coming from another district. So I believe a motion to amend that motion is necessary.
Okay.
I'm going to make a motion to amend the original motion to replace to another ACSD school and replace that term with another school or another learning environment.
Adequate learning environment.
Yeah.
Jason could
is there-
have called a recess for 5 minutes.
In order to entertain this motion to amend, then we would need a second.
Yeah, but we got to wait until Jason gets back.
I'm sorry, can you reread the motion to amend?
We're going to wait until Jason comes back, and then, so we're kind of taking a pause right now because Jason is, we should have had a recess, a motion to recess for 5 minutes.
We're waiting.
That's okay. We could have done a motion for a recess
Motion for recess?
for 5 minutes, so you could have went to those darn Robert's rules.
Okay, Jason,
So why don't you now do it
I will
officially?
make a motion to amend my original motion to replace the words, transfer to another ACSD school, to replace that with transfer to another adequate learning environment.
And are you also using the word authorize or direct? Authorize, I think those are very different legal terms.
Can I clarify what they
Yeah.
mean? Authorize, as I understand it, gives you the right, but not necessarily you don't have to do it. Like you can talk to people and have, but whatever. And direct is you have to do it.
Right.
Okay. The original motion, as I understand it, was authorize.
That's correct.
Okay. Which,
So what is your intent? I just want to make sure.
My intent is to give you the ability to move students to resolve this K-1-2 matter. My intent is to create a situation where it's easier to either hire or to take the second graders and move them to the third grade classroom, but to remove the K-1 kids so that is possible. So I guess I would say direct. But I want there to be a discussion with parents and parent choice on where their children end up. So that's my.
I'm not advocating one way or the other, except that lack of clarity will not help this situation.
Yeah.
So if what you're wanting to say is that in this motion for consideration is that grades K and 1 will be transferred, and you're directing me to do that in negotiation with families in all the right ways, in the way that I feel is best supportive of their education, then I understand that. If that's not what your intent is, then I just want to make sure to clarify what your intent is.
Yeah. So
She's
let me reword this.
okay.
I apologize, guys. Bear with me. My motion to amend the original motion is to direct Dr. Baker to transfer K and first grade students from Ripton Elementary School in consultation with their families to another adequate learning environment for the 2024-25 academic year.
I'll second the amendment.
Any discussion? Joanna?
My reflection on that is that the least disruptive would just be to move one grade and ensure a hiring of a combined K-1 teacher. I think 2 grades combined a hiring is not as far-fetched as a 3 grade, and it would be the least disruptive. A K1 teacher.
I think you mean a 1-2.
1-2.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
1-2. Not move the K1.
What, Joanna, what?
I mean, it seems like the board wants to move students tonight. Like the ruling or the motion to postpone another week was not accepted. And so my reflection on that is to move as few kids as possible and ensure that we hire a teacher for those kids. I think if we want to not disrupt as many kids, we don't want to add another grade to a teacher that's already a month in, that we ensure hiring of a 1-2 teacher.
So are you amending Mary Heather's motion?
I don't know if I'm allowed to.
No, vote on the amendment and then.
Well, you can amend an amendment. It's a layer, it's an
Then I can't
onion.
vote on it.
I mean, I'm just saying procedurally, one can amend an amendment. If someone wants to,
Okay, I'll
Yeah, so I have a question for the chair.
yes,
I want to know when a person has to recuse themselves. And I don't want an ad lib thing. I want it from what Robert's rules so that we know why Joanna has to recuse herself.
it's part of our policy. It's a conflict of interest or,
How is it a conflict of interest?
Joanna has a 2nd grader.
Well, then we go back to the same question though.
We're
That
moving the K1.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the relevant information you need.
so from the policy, Suzanne, you can help me here. Which policy?
I think it's A1.
A1.
The ethics.
It's usually A1. It might, in our script, it might be A something else, but the VSBA policy is A1. Which,
It's also A5. Board members shall be impartial and keep the needs of the entire district paramount. Board members shall not be conflicted by loyalties to staff, other organizations, or any personal interest as a parent, guardian, or friend of a student.
I'm sorry, I don't know if anyone can see my hand. How was Joanna not being impartial? We don't know that she was not going to be impartial. And I'm sorry, this means that parents cannot vote on things related to schools. I assume this board is going to be talking about closing schools within maybe a year. I have a child at Cornwall School. Am I not going to vote on that? Am I not going to, I think this is a very dangerous precedent made on real back of the napkin interpretations of conflict of interest. I remember watching the board's long presentation from Pietro Lynn about our conflict of interest policy. It's fiscal, it's financial gain. This is I really worry outside of tonight that we're playing super fast and loose and setting out precedents that are not sustainable for the work that this board has to do. And I also sort of think it sounds like we could use another week to consider what options are best and on the table.
I have my hand up. Can I speak, please?
Yes, you may.
I would like to second what was just said by Ellen. I'm a parent of kids at Salisbury. Does that mean I can't vote because this is impacting them? Kids that are going to be starting pre-K, and I want to have healthy discussions about that. It doesn't feel good to know that we're at this moment that it's going to be a problem.
Mary Heather.
Just in response to those two questions, that is not at all what I'm suggesting. I think in this particular matter, there has been involvement as a parent and a signature on this letter that to me crosses the threshold between advocating as a parent and making an impartial decision on the best interests of the entire school district. I'm not trying to set a precedent or a blanket statement. Joanna herself said that she was going to recuse herself. So I suspect she's contemplated this before coming to this meeting. So, I mean, it seems, I know if I were in this situation and my child was in a classroom that the board was actively contemplating taking action against, I would not participate in that action.
I mean,
Joanna?
I do not believe my signature on the letter of support is a conflict of interest at all. That I am really proud of that letter, and it doesn't mean that I can't vote impartially on the board. It's that I can also support the school in the meaning behind the sentiment behind that letter. So actually, I am feeling more and more like it is setting a precedent for the other parents that are here. And I don't want to be part of that.
Jamie?
I mean, Joanna's been a subject of a conflict of interest debate for quite a while. And we resolved it last time by talking to Pietro. And he basically, Ellen summarized the conversation pretty well, but basically he's like, you're elected politicians. The decision largely rests on your ability to leverage financial things based upon your position. I don't know if Joanna plans to profit off this decision at all, but if she does, that would certainly be a conflict of interest. But if she doesn't, I'm not convinced. I'm not a lawyer, obviously, like none of us are. If we have a real problem here and we have we really want to test this, and Joanna's even feeling a little bit ambiguous, then frankly, we should probably just ask Pietro.
So, I guess I'll make what I think I'm going to do is I'll let you speak first, and I'll.
Well, I guess what I was going to say, I believe it is a choice
Yes.
that each board member has. There's no requirement.
Yes, there's no. That's
So if Joanna chooses to vote,
yes, she can do that.
may vote.
Right.
Anybody can do so with objection from the board. I don't think there's.
Yeah, that's what I was.
For other board members, there's no requirement, I guess.
Right.
It was a request. I provided my reasons.
Yep.
But there's no requirement.
Right.
So if that's the case, then how do we re-vote on the motion to delay?
We don't. It's
Don't.
already voted
It's already been
on.
passed.
So the one,
And I'll make a motion to postpone for 1 week.
Second.
I'm sorry, just to clarify, the
We
motion that's
have
on the table
yes,
is
we
an
have
amendment.
amendment
So,
that has to be dealt with
that has
first.
to be dealt with first.
yeah,
So can you restate the amendment, please?
Aye.
I make a motion to amend my original motion to direct Dr. Baker to transfer K-1 students from Ripton Elementary School to another adequate learning environment for the 2024 or the remainder of the 2024-25 academic year.
And that was seconded.
And that was seconded by Suzanne.
Okay. So let's vote on this amendment, and then we'll be back to the main motion. And then the other motion can be entertained again.
Just on a point of order, I know that it was convenient to go with the people online, but usually when you take a roll call vote, it goes alphabetically
And we can do
down
that.
the list.
Okay.
Starting with first name or last name, sorry.
So, last name.
I need a list. Okay.
Yeah, I've got a list I can call.
Okay, can you call?
Yes, so I'm skipping you, Barb, unless we need you. Brian?
Nay.
And this is for the motion to amend.
Okay, sorry. Ellen Whelan Weist?
Oh, wait a minute.
Sorry.
I was-
Sorry, I'm looking at board pack, so my bad.
Me,
Yes, Suzanne Buck.
yes, right? I
Right.
think that's right.
Yes,
Okay.
to change,
Um,
you're voting to change.
To
The
amend
amendment.
motion. Okay.
Okay, Jason Chance.
Aye.
Joanna Doria.
Nay.
Sorry, I'm alphabetizing on the fly here. Jamie, no, sorry, Laura.
Aye.
No, Jamie.
No.
Chip.
Aye.
Looks like I'm up. I. Steve.
Aye.
Ellie Rump.
Nay.
And Ellen.
Nay.
I think that's everyone. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the ayes have it.
Which then means that the motion, now we're back at the core motion.
Yeah.
You peeled the onion. Do we need to read that motion?
Can I make my motion to postpone for a week now?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. I move to postpone for 1 week.
Is it okay, Ellen, if I put it for the September 23rd meeting? Is that all right? If I just specify
Yeah,
that
yep,
specifically?
sorry. Yep, until the next meeting on September 23rd.
I second that.
Brian already seconded.
And so we'll do the same roll call.
Yes. Okay, Brian.
You do have one member absent.
Oh, yes.
Suzanne,
Thank you.
Sorry.
thank you.
She's coming back.
I hope so.
This is one of the most complicated rule, Roberts.
Yes.
Wow.
So what are we doing now? Sorry, folks.
So the motion to amend passed. Now we need to vote on that amended.
No.
No.
Sorry.
Postpone.
My
Postpone.
bad.
Postpone.
Ellen
Made a
made a
motion.
motion
Yes,
to
to
postpone
postpone.
until the September 23rd meeting. Brian seconded. Now we're voting on that. So
You
Brian, you voted
Yep.
aye, correct? Okay.
Nay.
Jason.
Aye.
Joanna.
Aye.
Laura.
Nay.
Jamie.
Aye.
Chip.
Nay.
MH, I'm voting nay. Steve.
Nay.
Ellie.
Aye.
And Ellen.
Aye.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Looks like the ayes have it. So we will postpone.
Also, point of order, the chair can vote to create a tie as well as break a tie.
I'm not going to do that.
Okay.
Okay. So the motion to postpone has passed. We're postponing until the 23rd.
Yep.
I
Joanna?
guess I need clarity on what has been postponed. Like what, we've taken 2 votes. One has been passed 6-5 in favor of your amendment.
And so that is the motion that's on the floor, and that is the motion that's been postponed. The vote has been postponed until next
So,
week.
Right.
so the plan for next week is to make that same motion.
That's
No, it's
what,
already on the table.
it's already
Yeah.
on the
So that
table.
motion
So we
will
would
be
just
part
need
of
Right.
the,
Continue discussion.
Yeah, it can be amended, it can be,
It requires a motion to bring it forward.
got it, back on the table.
So we could make a motion to do something else that is not tied to making a decision on that motion, correct? So we could direct Wendy to gather more additional information if we needed to, correct? This is from a Robert's Rules perspective.
well, and if, as I had indicated at the last board meeting, if there is information that we need to be putting that in front of her now, in order to make the decision, because otherwise we'll be here again next week and you still won't have that information, right? So if there's specific information that folks need, then it's important to articulate that so that she can go off and gather that information if possible. Okay, I'm going to do Jamie first
Can
and then Ellen.
I don't know, is this the right, you sort of seem to invite this right now, so I'll just say it.
Yeah,
Can I request that there be an executive session to deal with personnel at our next meeting?
yes, you can.
That would happen before we have to make a decision.
Right.
Clarifying.
Yeah, clarifying that.
Ellen and Joanna have it.
Yep, Ellen, then Joanna.
Yeah, I think that last week we had just heard about this whole issue. So I think it's helpful to have had some time to really brainstorm and process together. And that's why I am better able to articulate that it would be helpful to hear or even to see in front of us. But sometimes reading it is much more effective, at least for me. The 4 options that Wendy was able to just say off the top of her head, and also to really hear like 3 of those might not be viable financially. They might, or this is the financial impact that they would have, this is the educational impact that we would expect, etc. I think there's value in sharing that information, not just with the board, but with the public, so that this feels less hasty. We heard from parents and staff how abrupt this feels. Again, 1 week to receive more information, to hear more about why this solution in the motion that we're considering is the best solution ultimately, even if the hard one. I think that's really important in our process around major decisions like this. So again, more information about what else is out there that we should consider or that we should eliminate. And I agree with having some more opportunity in executive session to discuss personnel matters would be helpful.
And is there anything specific though, that you're looking for in terms of information though? Because it's very,
I think it would be really helpful to know why moving, if the recommendation from the administration is to move KN1, or if that's preferable, why? As opposed to what it sounds like we're most wrestling with potentially now, which is, do we just move kindergarten or first grade? I think it would be helpful to know what the financial implications of hiring an additional teacher to try to cover 3 grades and why that would be unadvisable. I can think more about it, Barb, if you'd like, and send emails to the executive committee if that would be useful, but I don't know if I'll do my best thinking at 9:40 p.m. right here.
Ellen, I'm hearing that taking the 4 options, even that I mentioned, and fleshing those out a little bit more is fine. I just want to make sure that you stated that the recommendation from the administration was to move the students, and that is not. The administration has not made a recommendation. I am presenting you with the challenges. So I just want to make that clear.
Totally fair. Sorry, that's lazy language on my part. Even if it's just kind of being able to lay out kind of, this is the option and here are the pros and the cons.
Yep.
And if it's like, wow, way more cons than pros, we can probably engage with that rationally as a board.
I certainly can do that.
Anything else? Joanna?
Yeah, I think it was actually along the exact same lines what Ellen said, is just sort of the feasibility of the things that seem to be so far-fetched. Like, is a K2 long-term sub with the talent we have internally, how feasible is that? Is there even interest in that? I think fleshing out those options are exactly what I would want to have.
Anything else?
I think it's, sorry.
Go ahead,
I think
Dora.
it's important to note that if we pull an internal long-term sub, we're taking them from another job that serves the district and is important to the district. So I kind of caution against looking for an internal long-term sub as a really viable solution to this particular problem. I'm not saying that there isn't some other solution.
Yeah.
I'm saying that one would also impact other students across the district's
Right.
learning.
Yeah, my.
Yep. Okay. So, moving on, I had meant to take report of the chair off this agenda because I didn't have anything underneath that. So we'll go to report of the board. And I did have one item that had been on the previous agenda that wasn't properly warned, which is C9. And so I'm going to turn it over to Jamie.
Yep. My computer died. Great. So C9, you heard last week, this is the local wellness policy. We, just a brief, Brian had some questions about certain parts of it. We discussed after Brian raised those objections, which were really interesting, and decided that some of those questions were best answered by the very committee of people that policy establishes. And we thought, therefore, there being no other questions or objections, that we would bring the policy for you to vote on tonight to advance to the, whatever the right word is.
To adopt.
To adopt.
To adopt, sorry, yes. I don't have anything else to say about it, really. You've seen it 5 times.
I move that we adopt the C9 policy as warned on August 22nd.
I second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, and per statute, we're going to do a roll call again because when we have people remote, legally, that's what I'm supposed to do.
Jesus, really? Are we going to always do that from now on?
That's
When
what
there's board
this,
members remote.
when there's board members remote, that statute says that, so we need to follow that.
All right, let's do it.
So, Mary Heather, could
No
I?
problem. Brian,
Yay.
Suzanne,
Yes. Or yay.
Jason,
Yes.
Joanna.
Yay.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay. Laura,
Yes.
Chip.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Jamie first.
No, but Chip is first.
Well, Mac without an A and.
Yeah.
I guess I
It's okay.
You're first.
Jamie.
Yeah, I'm first, so, but she's been calling you first.
I know you've been calling me, but I realized that he's actually first. Yeah.
I'm
Point of
sorry.
Anyway.
alphabetical order.
Yes.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going by last names.
Okay.
MH, yes. Steve.
Yay.
Ellie, Ron.
Yes.
Ellen.
Yay.
Okay. Looks like the yeas have it or ayes
Yes,
have
they
it.
do.
And the motion has been adopted.
Yes, the motion has been adopted.
Policy.
The policy, sorry. Gosh, we're all tired. Okay, next on the agenda is public comment on any topic. Is there any public comment? Steve?
Yeah, I'm gonna keep it quick. I'll try and keep it to a minute. First of all, I appreciate the thoughtful deliberations this evening. It has illuminated some of this conversation for me and dispelled some of the questions I had. So thank you, all of you, for sticking with it. Second, I do hope the board is aware that I was emailing with the superintendent yesterday morning at 7:45 a.m. And so this is a topic that Dr. Baker is engaged in. I don't know where the emails went, but it's almost 10 o'clock tonight, and that was 7:50 yesterday. So I appreciate the attention she's given it. And then the other one on personnel stuff, I would just say for the 2 resignation letters that exist, they're both in my email. I think they're public and everything. I think you all have them, and I would
Yes.
encourage everybody to read those. They are different letters, and I think they explain some of where each of those individuals are at. So thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Anyone else? Yes, John.
I just wanted to to me, a couple of things really quick. I made it clear that the motion has been postponed is to direct, which means it's happening, even if parents say they don't want to. And I think the parents, as I understand correctly, already met with Dr. Baker and that they expressed that they want their children to stay invested. I feel like all this the other side conversation, which is important, but I feel like in a way that got a little bit missed. And that to direct Dr. Baker to do something and for that's against the wishes of the parents of these children. And I just think that's a very important point. And I'll just leave it at that. Okay, thank you.
Okay, anyone else in the room or on Zoom? Okay, seeing none. I think we can move to adjournment. Can I have a motion?
Move to adjourn.
In a second?
Oh,
I'll give, yeah, okay. Thank you guys for
Thank you for that.
your participation tonight.